ROCpodcasts.com.
Breaking news. Shoppers were equally shocked and thrilled as the entire cast of sci-fi sitcom Red Dwarf suddenly landed in the middle of the television sales floor at the local Best Buy.
Well, man, I was just standing there watching fishing on the TV when these dudes in funny suits almost knocked me over. I just seen them on TV the other night flying that spaceship, and here they were, jumped right out of the television. Me and Bubba's been standing here the last 2 hours waiting for the Duck Dynasty boys to show up. I don't think that's going to happen. Dang it.
OMG, I couldn't believe it. I was standing here checking my email from my iPhone, and all of a sudden out walks Arnold J. Rimmer through the price crash sign. And then comes Dave Lister and Crichton sliding down the television aisle, followed by Kat with a remarkable dance move. It was amazing. I can't believe this is happening to me. Oh my God, fan overload. Show creator Doug Naylor could not be reached for comment at this time. Back to our regular programming. This is an SOS distress call from the mining ship Red Dwarf. The crew is dead, killed by a radiation leak. Luckily, video records of the survivors' attempts to return to Earth still exist. These blokes, Brent and Paul, are ready to tell you all about them. You're listening to Tongue Tied, a Red Dwarf podcast. Stand by for comment and analysis on your favorite episodes of Red Dwarf.
Good, Benny.
Featuring
Boys from the Dwarf,
Brent Johnson,
hey smaghead,
and Paul Towsley.
Better make myself look big.
And now, from the drive room, the boys from the Dwarf.
Look out there, the slime's coming home.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tongue Tied, a Red Dwarf podcast. I'm Brent.
And I'm Paul. And this is our 9th episode, where we'll be discussing Series 9 of Red Dwarf, which aired from April 10th through the 12th, 2009. The stories in this season are...
Back to Earth. That's it, really.
Right on.
Special thanks to our guest last month, Professor David Keep of Professor Dave's Ark in Space, formerly of the DWO WhoCast. You can hear us discussing Series 8 on our iTunes feed or at paultowsley.com, so go check that out. That was an excellent episode. So before we get into today's show, I wanted to give a heads up to listeners of my other podcast, Doctor Who, The Quest is the Quest. You know, haven't done one since January. There's going to be a few new episodes coming up soon, so I wanted to tell everybody about that. Originally, I'd intended to do a full Series 8 wrap-up either right before or right after Christmas, but I've decided to break it up and do the first 6 after they've aired, and then the last 6 later on, which may or may not include the Christmas special. I might do that separately.
Paying for a podcast feed and has new material on it in a while. Brent's getting itchy and wants to put stuff out there. That's awesome. I'm really happy you're doing that.
And there's also that video episode that I promised way back. Still haven't forgotten it. I've got all the video clips together of my top 10 cliffhangers, but it's been tremendously busy summer this year, so I'll pull that together sometime before the end of the year, so stay tuned for all of that. Of course, you can still download any or all the episodes from the past at thequestisthequest.libsyn.com or on iTunes or Podcatcher or by any means necessary. So
listen to every episode twice.
Yay. All right, Paul, what's been going on, man?
Well, September's been a busy month for me musically, which is another good thing. I've actually played a couple weddings, and I went to this one wedding where it was being filmed for the show Say Yes to the Dress, and they wanted the band to play Taylor Swift songs, so we had to learn some Taylor Swift songs. They actually, weren't that bad. They were fun. No singing, of course, since it's a piano trio, basically jazz band, playing these pop songs, but that's what they wanted, so that's what we did. Something weird happened at that, actually, because the bride and groom announced to the whole, throng of people that were there at the reception that they were already pregnant. And, I just thought, all these weddings that I've been to, that's the first time I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard that. Yeah.
So I've played a lot of wedding receptions. I've been to lots of other people's weddings, and that was definitely a first for that one. I have been to a few others, and you get the obligatory maid of honor speech that gives the two rules. The wife is always right, and if she's wrong, refer to rule 1. That was in both speeches that I heard in the last 2 weeks, and I of course heard that the best man speech where he says, we've been waiting for this woman to, meet someone really great to come into her life. We're glad she settled for you while she was waiting for him to come along, that kind of thing. So I'm sure the delivery was much better. I'm trying to, struggle through my recollections, and the delivery made the whole joke. And I bombed on it. What have you been up to?
Oh, really just working. And, in my spare time, I've been catching up with some shows. Almost caught up on Walking Dead. They're getting ready to start season 5, and so I've watched 3 seasons this summer, and now I'm like maybe a quarter of the way through season 4. I'm almost done with MI5, which I've been watching for like 5 or 6 years, off and on. In the UK, it was called Spooks, but when it came over here, it was MI5. So I don't know if you've seen that before, but it's basically MI5 is the UK version of the CIA, I think. And the style and the writing and everything is very similar to like 24 over here. But instead of one Jack Bauer, you got a team that works together.
So this is a modern show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It just ended maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So it's fairly recent. And I'm also getting ready for a little silent rewatch of Babylon 5 because I'm going to follow him up with Chip's new, Chip, the 2-Minute Time Lord, has a new podcast called The Audio Guide to Babylon 5.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's him and his wife Shannon and Erica from the Verity podcast.
Oh, cool. We've been watching Buffy. I've never seen all of Buffy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's something that we've been up to. It's fun. I'm looking forward to it to being a little bit more developed and a little less Monster of the Week.
I got a little story about that, actually. I never got into Buffy. I tried it a couple of times, and I thought it was going to be one thing, and it wasn't. I thought it was going to be like serious, like vampire drama, and it was kind of silly. So I didn't really get into it, but I went to, it was actually my very first Doctor Who convention, and it was 97, I think, and it was in Chicago, Chicago TARDIS, and there were actually Buffy people there. For Doctor Who, it was Sylvester McCoy, Louise Jameson, Terry Walsh, the stunt guy. He was there, Carolyn John, and Jeffrey Beavers, her husband. So I met all of them. That was really cool. But also, there were Buffy people there. Xander was there. Anthony Stewart Head was supposed to be there, and he got called away at the last second. So he was replaced by somebody else that's on there, an older guy. Maybe you would know.
Not yet, no.
Oh, okay.
That's the guy who I'd want to see at the Doctor Who / Buffy convention.
Yeah, Anthony Stewart Head. But yeah, he wasn't there.
He's very much the Doctor character in that series, except he doesn't get involved as much because Buffy's the main character.
Right. And the guy that played Xander, he was a nice guy. I saw him, Nicholas Brendan. That was his name. It's really cool going to a convention in a hotel where you're staying in the same hotel, because you could just go, oh, I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to go across the street or something. And you go out in the lobby, or you get in the elevator, and all of a sudden there's a star like in the same elevator as you. And
can I push the button for you, Mr. McCoy?
Right. So there was, I went to New York. It's a tangent here. I went to New York in 95 for a Dark Shadows convention. And that happened a lot. I actually rode the elevator with Laura Parker, who I had a big crush on. It was at Times Square, so I got to see a lot of the cool stuff around there. That was really neat. A Sbarro's on every corner in New York City. But I got in an elevator, And I swear to you, it was John Hurt. And he kept looking at the floor the entire time he was in there, and I was too scared to say anything. But I looked at him.
Hand in your shirt and, like, you know, wave goodbye from underneath your shirt like it's the alien busting out of his chest. Bye.
All right, so let's get started with our last story. Well, our only story, a three-parter called
Back to Earth takes place after Series 10. Kachansky's dead, and the crew are hailed through a portal and discover they are just characters from a TV series. Knowing they will die in the final episode...
Die?
The Dwarfers and best Blade Runner tradition track down their creators to plead for more life.
How are we going to do that? Easy. Hey, buds, give us more life. I'm pleading with you. See?
First, the crew attempt to track down the actors who play them in the series, and their metaphysical odyssey begins.
All my life, I've wanted to go on a metaphysical odyssey. For years, I never thought I'd get the chance.
So what happens next? Doesn't say it's a three-parter.
No, not a three-parter. I hate three-parters.
which aired April 10th, 11th, and 12th of 2009, written and directed by Doug Naylor. The crew are transported into another dimension and land in the middle of a department store and discover their lives have been a long-running sitcom on a channel named Dave. Too weird for words.
This is too weird for words.
So this was the big return of the show after 10 years, and it was also the flagship launching show of a brand new channel called Dave. And I remember when this was coming up, and they made a really big deal about it from what I read on the internet at the time. It was basically a 90-minute movie, but split into 3 parts over 3 consecutive nights. So for the purposes of our discussion today, we're going to treat it as one story. We're actually going to do a little synopsis of what happened really quick and then go back and talk about different points. Anyway, after playing a prank on Rimmer, Lister goes to a part of the ship where there's a memorial and some of the dead crew, including Kachansky. Kat, Crichton, and Dave go down into a pod to investigate a dimension-hopping Leviathan that's been discovered in the ship's water tank and barely escaped due to Rimmer's ineptitude. So that leads to the introduction of a new character, although temporary, a new hologram called Katarina. She's activated to replace Rimmer and help Lister restore the human race. She opens up a dimension portal, and the boys jump through into an alternate reality. So they land in the middle of a department store in the TV aisle and discover their entire lives were the makings of a sitcom and that Dave Lister was supposed to die. And they make their way through town trying to find out when this happens, and they end up meeting some of the stars of the show, and they end up confronting the creator of the show, and then in the end they discover they've been hit by the ink of another squid. This time it wasn't a despair squid like from Back to Reality, but it was a joy squid, which was actually a female. So that's in a nutshell.
So when we left them at the end of Series 8, as far as we know, like, Rimmer was still alive.
Right, and he Grim Reaper had come for him, and then he stood up and kicked him in the balls and said, "I'm out of here," and left, and that was it.
So the first scene says 9 years later. We're assuming that it's 9 years after those events, just because it's like also been 9 years in the real life. And I don't know, like, all of a sudden it's back to the way that the crew is supposed to be with dead Rimmer, and he's a hologram, and I don't know. I'm hoping that gets at least picked on a little bit.
This is the first time the show is in widescreen and HD, and it looks spectacular. Of course, the ship has a bit of a makeover again. Lots more blue and gray.
There's a ton of new camera angles and stuff like that, too. You could tell that someone else that wasn't like just used to working on TV sets was actually running the cinematography, and that was really cool, too.
Yeah, it looks great. And it's been, it's been 10 years at this point. It's been 10 years since they've done a show, so... But the weird thing about this one was the lack of audience, because you remember back when they shot Series 7, there was no audience, but they went back and showed it for crowd reaction and laughter. But then when Series 8 came along, it seemed like they learned from that and shot it live again in front of an audience. But here they've gone back to filming it without an audience, but they didn't go back and put overdubs with laughter and everything. So that was kind of weird.
Yeah, it was. It was very different from how they'd done things in the past.
next month we'll be talking about Series 10, and that's back in front of a live audience. So, guess I can't make up their mind. Maybe there's some reason about that I don't know about. But anyway, the scene I was talking about earlier where Lister goes out to the memorial for Kochanski because supposedly she's dead. I love that scene. That was actually kind of touching there watching that. And if you look closely, you'll see, you know, how he walked up and you saw some faces on there beside Kochanski. The face of longtime special effects guy Mel Bibby was on there. He had just died not long before they filmed this.
That's a nice tribute.
Yeah.
All right, so my favorite part of this episode is how the Red Dwarf fans are portrayed, both in the geek shop guy that is there, and all of a sudden the characters are in his store, and it doesn't faze him at all. He has to call up the other nerd and sorry about interrupting the Warhammer, mate. Here I got this question for you about Red Dwarf.
Makes latex masks for the film and TV industry, specializing in noses. Maybe we track him down, he'll point us in the right direction.
But, sir, how are we going to get there? That's over 30 miles away.
I know. Hollyhock Drive.
Back on Red Dwarf.
Down the dwarf.
Matter paddle.
Back on Red Dwarf.
Time slides where you walk into a photograph and...
That's
Back on Red Dwarf.
Got it. Been there.
That's Star Trek.
That's not us, sir. No, we don't do that, sir.
All right, if you've got no teleportation systems or antimatter reassemblers, no option. You'll have to catch the bus.
So that, and then the little kids on the bus, being so comfortable with these TV characters to go up and speak to them in their own vernacular. Tell Rimmer he's a smeghead. So those were my favorite parts. Is just the portrayal of the fans. As it gets into the third part, I'm a little weirded out because what did they just they left reality and they went into the Blade Runner reality?
Part of it, yeah. That was.
I guess we should talk about the Coronation Street bit first, then, because they move into that territory and then they go off to this, completely left field. It was all believable up until that point, and then all of a sudden, the whole world changed.
Yeah, because at the time, Craig Charles was on Coronation Street, and I have never seen that show. I've seen EastEnders a lot, but never seen Coronation Street. So I'm guessing that the guy that let him in there is probably on that show at the time, and maybe the girl in the shop was on it also. That's just a guess. I don't know.
I think so. So we should just plead our ignorance here. Sorry, Red Dwarf fans, but we don't know about Coronation Street, so we're just going to have to say we are ignorant, we do not know, and leave it at that. So there was a Doctor Who episode, and I want to say it was the Mind Robber, but I really don't think that's the right one. But I think they did the same typewriter bit in that, and I think it was a Troughton episode.
They did. I had that written down. It was the Mind Robber. And the guy's name was the Master, and he wasn't the Master that we knew later, but that was his name.
He was a pre-Master Master.
Yeah, so that's actually one of my favorite Troughton stories is the Mind Robber. That episode 1 is just incredible.
Everything keeps getting in their heads, right? He sees a unicorn that's going to charge and kill him.
Right. It's all like a fantasy land. They end up, he takes the TARDIS out of space and time. Kind of like if you've seen Legopolis, where the Doctor tells the Watcher tells Adric to take the TARDIS out of space and time.
Yeah.
And then they come back, and it's that. But while they're out, they leave the TARDIS and they run into a lot of fantastic little things like unicorns and fictional childhood storybook people, and it's really weird.
This is the one where Zoe flips a superhero too, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. I have seen that. It's been so many years. I need to go back and find that and watch it. It sounds like a total trip.
But you're right. It ends up being this guy who has a typewriter, and everything he writes happens. And it was much like this scene at the end, or near the end, where their creator is using that.
And he lives in a pyramid in London.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, can you talk about the change of scene all of a sudden?
Well, it's been a long time since I've seen Blade Runner. So I can't tell you how close this little segment was to that, but I do remember some of it. I remember Harrison Ford chasing Rutger Hauer or vice versa, down the road shooting at each other near the end there. It seems like there was a scene with breaking through glass or something. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Okay, so we're going to have to plead ignorance on this one as well, because I haven't seen Blade Runner in 15 years either.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't do our homework on that particular topic, unfortunately.
No, but they totally ripped that entire scene from that. So at the end, we figure out that it's not a despair squid, but a joy squid. The joy squid is the female. The despair squid was the male, which was back in Back to Reality. And it didn't hit me until it was over the similarity of the two titles, which Back to Reality and Back to Earth. There's a scene where Rimmer, it's like hyper intelligent, trying to figure out where to locate the president of the Red Dwarf fan club by zooming in on a card and doing all the reflections and the backwards and all that silliness. And you're like, what? When did Rimmer become that smart? and then at the end, you figure out that it was all, in their heads.
Yeah,
but
we think like that? Yeah, the cat was never messed up. He was always exactly perfect and smooth and stuff. He didn't go ahead and do anything crazy like make spaceships dance, but it was still kind of cool. Yeah, I should have picked up on that too. Tell me about the first time you saw this.
It's been 5 years since I've seen it. I've only seen it once, like when it came out. I haven't seen it since then. So I downloaded each one the day after it came out. So I did the way it was originally intended, is watching one part per day, which is what I did. And it was okay. It wasn't, I don't know, I think I was overhyped. I was so excited to see them come back because it had been 10 years. And then, I don't know, I kind of felt shortchanged a little bit. That it was, I thought the whole coming into our universe and seeing themselves on TV and everything was, I thought it was a little silly. And I guess I was expecting some big space adventure or something. Or at least, I don't know what I was expecting, but I remember being a little disappointed.
Yeah, it's underwhelming at the end. I had a different kind of experience because I didn't even know that Series 9 existed. And then Red Dwarf showed up on the Netflix. And, hey, look, there's a number 9. I never heard of that. So then I sat and watched all 3 episodes back to back. And I think that it would work better as a 90-minute movie or less movie, without all of the in-between stuff and just kind of make it flow all the way through.
That was the way to watch it, though, was to watch all 3 in a row. I think it works a lot better that way, which is sort of what I did this time. I watched part 1, and then I watched 2 and 3 together the next day. Yeah, like I said, the first time I saw it, I thought it was a bit cheesy with the dimension where Red Dwarf was real, and there's Lister standing there holding the exact DVD case that you could buy at the store. But I went with it this time, and I enjoyed it a lot more this time. I guess maybe it was knowing the plot twist at the end helped.
Helps you accept all of the unreality of the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell him. I'm walking through the cargo deck, right? Minding my own damn business. When all of a sudden, you know that big tank on G-deck?
He means the water tank.
Suddenly, there's a disturbance on the surface of the tank, and this massive testicle shoots up out of the water and grabs me by the throat.
He means tentacle.
I hope so.
So do you want a car bug?
That was pretty funny, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'd rather
love
DeLorean, but the car bug was fun.
I love the way they were. That was one of the great scenes. Was I think it was the very first of part 3, where they're driving the car and they're talking to each other like they're flying a ship, giving Lister directions on how to drive the car,
going through all the checklists and all the procedural kind of stuff that they do.
What are some of your favorite scenes out here?
Well, I definitely talked about the geeks. So paying homage to the geeks. I liked the rivalry between Katarina at the beginning and Rimmer. Just like, oh, look, I'm better than you, so you're obviously going to be deleted. I wonder why she had to wait 24 hours to delete him. Just so that they could have some more glares and nastiness coming from Rimmer. That character is born from the squid also. Is that all part of the hallucination?
Yeah, because she showed up after they went down in the tank, right?
Right.
So
gave him this pretty girl to talk to.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes was when they get into reality and Katarina shows up and Rimmer pushes her out in front of a bus.
Right.
Yeah.
No hesitation.
Oh, that was so funny. I love that. Crichton thinking that the mailbox was a droid.
Taking it all apart, trying to figure out what happened.
The funniest to me was when they actually go to the creator's place and they walk in and you see the two little Rimmers there as his butlers.
Oh, no, yeah, those guys from Rimmer World. No, it wasn't even Rimmer World.
Blue.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Oh, that was so funny. I totally forgot that part, and it showed them. Oh, God, it's hilarious. I love the scene at the end where we see Chloe Annette come in as Kachansky again, and Dave knows he's hallucinating, but he wants.
Yeah, going to go with it for the time being.
Yeah, he wants so badly to stay behind with her. That was a really great scene too.
So it wasn't really a 3-part story. We would have enjoyed it a little bit better as a 1-part story. And after 10 years, I think everybody kind of wanted a little bit more. So hopefully that's what we get when we get on to Series 10.
Although I will say I was a little disappointed that the creator wasn't Doug Naylor.
Yeah, that was an obvious casting choice. I wonder why he decided not to do it.
Maybe he didn't think he'd be a great actor or something. Oh, did you like it? Series 9?
I thought that it could be better. And, like I said, it was underwhelming because after 10 years with nothing, you'd think that they'd put a little bit more into it and make it more than just a fun little romp. But that's not how they roll, so I'm looking forward to Series 10.
Point is, how do we kill it? I mean, we can't suck it out of an airlock, we lose the water. We can't Mickey the water, we pollute the drinking supply.
No choice. We're gonna have to go in. Get it?
Serious?
We're gonna need a diving bell, the kind with grade 1 reinforced titanium ribs. We're gonna need diving suits, bazookoids, mini grenades, laser lancer, blasters. And we're gonna need something good for me to read while you're all down there. Classic Car Monthly or something.
So coming up next month, I have not seen Series 10. So this will be the first time watching it, and we're going to review it with a very special guest from a very special female Doctor Who podcast. But that's for next time. Say goodbye, Paul.
Goodbye, Paul.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Tongue Tied, a Red Dwarf podcast. Red Dwarf, the song Tongue Tied, and all associated material are trademarks of Grant Naylor Productions. No infringement is intended. You can email the podcast at tonguetiedpodcast@yahoo.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tonguetiedpodcast. And follow us on Twitter at tonguetiedpod. For the boys from the dwarf, this is Paul Towsley saying,
Dabble, diggle, doggle, niggle, foggle, nibble, nay. I'm trying to say I'm tongue-tied, tongue-tied, whenever you are near me. I'm mummy, 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 whenever you're...
Mr. Rimmer,
Yes?
you have 24 hours to get your affairs in order. Then you will be offline and your data files erased. Then your hard drive will be fired into space, and when safe distance from ship, it will be detonated by nuclear fusion.
You really don't like me, do you?
Now, sir, we need clear heads and equanimity. Naturally, it's extremely disturbing to discover that we are just characters in a TV series, and naturally there's going to be a period of acclimatization. But it's essential that we keep all this in perspective.
We're not real. What are we gonna do?
There, I think that's pretty much put it in perspective, don't you, sirs?
I'm gonna eat you, little fishy, 'cause I like little fish.
ROCpodcasts.com.